All right, let's go. Detroit Lions 42, Carolina Panthers 24. Lions, man, they moved to 4-1, and not just 4-1. They're starting to dominate, right? Like we said, coming into this game, 9.5-point spread when we recorded last Wednesday. It's different territory here.
If they hadn't dropped that game to the Seahawks, would we be talking about the Lions as the best team in the NFL?
No, because the 49ers and Eagles exist.
Yeah.
But there'd be more of a conversation. I think that they had one. It looks like just one blip so far against Seattle,
right.
who's not a bad team.
The 49ers have looked incredible, but the Eagles have been wobbly for a bit.
But there's a track record with the Eagles.
Sure, but
right?
I think you could make the case. The Seattle game doesn't happen, and you could make the argument that Detroit's resume is better than Philadelphia's at this point.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. No, Detroit, what I wrote down in my notes here, too, is the thing I say about the Eagles all the time is now Detroit can kind of win in different ways. There are games where their defense will step up. Their pass rushers will step up. I'm still a little concerned that it's Aidan and friends up front, that it's maybe not enough. But he had a monster game again yesterday, including the interception. The other thing that's interesting to me, I kind of like David Montgomery as their battering ram. So there's a lot of fans who are just – Jahmyr Gibbs didn't play in this game, but they're upset that Jahmyr Gibbs isn't getting all the carries. And it feels like David Montgomery's just trudging along for 3 yards a pop over and over and over again. But last week, it was against the Packers. It did feel like that old school kind of like wear you down and stick with it against the Packers last week. And then in this one, Montgomery breaks out for the 42-yard touchdown. And I kind of like him as the battering ram when you also have all the other playmakers around that. They got Sam Laporta open behind the defense, schemed up again.
Same trick play the 49ers ran.
Same play the 49ers ran.
How does that happen? It's like the exact same play. There's no way Shanahan stole it from earlier that afternoon.
It's not the first time it's ever been run.
No, obviously. But for two teams to run it the same day?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a little weird.
It is interesting. But that's the thing about Detroit, right? Ben Johnson's calling the plays, and Jared Goff's playing well, right? Like what you said about Stroud.
Yeah.
That's why the Lions are good. I keep interrupting myself. They're good everywhere. Yeah, they're good everywhere. Goff is playing great ball right now.
This might be the best Jared Goff we've ever seen.
Yes.
In any offense.
I was making these random cutoffs in a couple podcasts ago, and I said, hey, since week 14 of last year, Jared Goff's the highest graded quarterback. Well, by the end of this week, he might be QB1 for this season, Goff. So he is a stretch, the best ball that he's played, in addition to Ben Johnson dialing it up, in addition to the battering ram of a running back that David Montgomery is, and all the fun playmakers that they have. Khalif Raymond still making big plays, Laporta, Josh Reynolds. It's looking good in Detroit for sure.
Yeah, and they did this with no Amon-Ra St. Brown. Didn't play in the game. Jameson Williams comes back, has a drop in there. It's not great. David Montgomery looked fantastic, broke off a long run, not just the battering ram, not just the guy making plays in a phone booth, but actually gets on the edge and has the breakaway speed to turn into a big play. Yeah, the Lions doing that without their theoretically best player on offense was very impressive. And then defense was kind of the same story. Is Aidan Hutchinson unusually good at sniffing out screens? Because he's now gotten quite a lot of interceptions in his career for a dude who's an edge rusher.
I think it's the fact that he just completes the pass. Because when most edge defenders sniff out screens.
Like Trey Hendrickson almost had one yesterday where he could have, should have had a pick six.
Those were, not to make my late 90s Jags reference, but Tony Brackens back in the day.
Big screen guy?
No, he was the ball magnet. He was like TJ Watt. Always strip sacks. But he was the guy that would instead of batting a pass, would just catch it, right? Or intercept the screen. And I do love that from edge defenders when they're so athletic that they are forcing turnovers, either in the screen game or from, reading the quarterback's eyes and, just snagging it out of the air. Hutchinson, that was incredible. Because again, most of the times you sniff out a screen, you're either holding up the running back, or you're waiting for him to catch it and you're tackling him. But Hutchinson gets in there and picks it off.
Yeah, like it's just one-handed, stabs it out of the, like stuns it, sticks out of hand, stuns the ball as it's trying to fly past him, and then is able to grab the ball that's now just hovering in the air from where he got it. Just incredible play. I feel like he's going to be one of these guys that is actually, I think he has a really good feel for those plays, those screens, those when something is a little off, and he understands how to just drop back or shuffle slightly into the throwing lane and cause problems, and then is coordinated enough or has good enough ball skills to not just break it up or get in the way of it, but actually potentially pick it off when that happens. Hutchinson continues to look like a phenomenal player for them.
So just before the half, you get Bryce Young throws an interception, and this is where it does feel different for the Lions, right? They force a turnover. It was a bad misread by Bryce. I think this is the one, right? The bad misread of cover two
corner.
Throws it to the cover 2 corner, something Jared Goff used to do.
Yeah.
Remind me, Troy Aikman catching all sorts of strays in this game in the graphics. It was pretty hilarious. I'll tell you in a second if you didn't see it.
Didn't.
But used to make fun of Goff all the time. Why you can't see the cover 2 corner? Bryce Young, same thing. Goff hit the cover 2 shot. I mean, again, he's throwing the ball extremely well. But the Lions get the turnover before the half. They're already in control of the game. That's when they hit the Laporta, the sudden change, trick play to get behind the defense. I think I had the game on mute because I'm watching all the games, and I kept seeing these graphics pop up. And I think it was either an excuse. It was either a way to compare Bryce Young and Jared Goff, or a way to say, hey, it doesn't matter how bad it starts for Bryce Young. Look at these other guys. So they were trying to show number 1 overall picks, and it was like Bryce Young, Eli, Peyton, Aikman, and Goff, and how bad they started, right? Bad record, bad touchdown to interception ratio. But it was like Aikman showed up in all of these graphics, like how bad he started back in '89. So there's one with all the Mannings and everything, and then there was one that was just Goff and Aikman starting like 0-7 with like a million interceptions or whatever. And I think the narrative was going to be, hey, Bryce Young, Goff came out of it, look at him now. Bryce Young can do that as well as a number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, so Bryce Young's start has been pretty concerning. Jared Goff, I think, is actually the player that I was trying to bring to mind yesterday when I was like, so a few people have made the point of like some of the mistakes that Bryce Young is making at the moment. Look, the situation is bad. That's obvious, right? His offensive line isn't good. His receivers aren't good. Bryce Young isn't playing well. It's not a good collective. It's not a good situation to be in. But he's also making mistakes that you simply did not see in college. His Alabama tape does not feature lofting the ball straight to a cover 2 corner who's always going to be there, right? Like that is a play he understood not to make in college and doesn't seem to understand not to make them in the NFL, and that's weird. But I think if you're looking for the player, like, so you start thinking, well, how many guys have done that like early in their NFL career and come out of the other side of it and been really good? And I don't, like, the game has changed so much that Peyton Manning is irrelevant. The game, like, forget Troy Aikman. Like, Peyton Manning's, it was always the cautionary tale of, that guy led the league in interceptions. Yeah, but, like, 1998 it's a different, it's not the same game. So throw that out. Jared Goff is the guy where you look at what he was doing as a rookie, and it's just start to finish, catastrophic, ridiculous mistakes, terrible. And now, as you say, Jared Goff is arguably the number 1 quarterback in the NFL this year, is playing absolutely fantastically. That's what Bryce Young needs to be able to get to. Like, this is bad, but everything is bad. Let's get to the other side of it. Because I don't – it's hard to defend at this point, like the performance that Bryce Young is having at the moment. It's been pretty rough.
It has, and I also feel like the last few weeks have been – better, right? I mean, they've been baby steps in the right direction.
It's never going to stop being funny.
Yeah, I said that last week.
But so, in addition to Bryce Young's baby steps, did you see they took him out for the QB sneak?
Oh, did they?
Like, that guy can't. Too lightweight to run a QB sneak.
Maybe
Andy Dalton's
so good at
QB sneak specialist. You know how much? So Andy Dalton, you know how much he outweighs Bryce Young by? 35 pounds. Now I'm using 185 as Bryce Young's weight because I'm not buying 205 weight at the combine with water. Because it doesn't exist.
You just can't get over this.
He doesn't weigh 205 pounds. He doesn't. Simply does not. The man weighs 185 soaking wet, and that means Andy Dalton outweighs him by 35 pounds. So it's probably the right choice to have him as a QB sneak quarterback. Unless you think that Bryce Young is so small that he has like a mouse-like scurrying ability to find the gap.
I'm just over the Bryce Young
Weasel his way in there.
and size discussion.
It's just QB sneaks. It's relevant.
Maybe.
Particularly in this
world.
world.
I kind of like the idea of a QB sneak specialist. Jacoby Brissett did that a couple years ago. Jared Goff's career is fascinating. His stretch of play in 2016 as a rookie, first off, he didn't get on the field until about week 11.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't beat out Case Keenum. It was Jeff Fisher's last year as a head coach. The offense was atrocious. And then Jared Goff came in and maybe played worse than the atrocious offense. It was poor overall. We were Jared Goff fans being like, man, we missed it. And then Sean McVay comes in 17, looks completely different. 18, Goff, that was probably the best that Goff ever played was year 3 until now. Year 3 was 2018. They go to the Super Bowl. 19, it falls apart. Like there's been all these ups and downs, and Jared Goff has been kind of the classic mid-tier quarterback who goes up with his scheme, goes down when the offensive line falls apart, and is very dependent on everything around him. And even his last couple of years in Detroit, we're like, the grade's not great, it's not there, but the stats are. Now they're both matching, and so a Lions fan might be like, hey, we told you Jared Goff was they told you to trust the stats. But I think what we're actually seeing here from Goff is when you have the scheme still good, and he's making the throws, right? He's not getting away with stuff, and he's adding value. Like he added value yesterday, throwing guys open, back shoulders. He's adding value with his arm. That's where Detroit's dangerous right now. And that's where their pass game is dangerous, and pairing that with the run game with Montgomery. So, so that's a little bit of give credit to Jared Goff and what's happening in Detroit. And then, oh, by the way, no matter what it looks like for Bryce Young, you might – it's not – Bryce Young right now through 5 games – is way better than what we saw from Goff's first 5 to 7 games in 2016. Right. That doesn't mean it's going to always get better, but if it's any comfort for Goff, Panthers fans who are 0-5 right now.
You sort of tend to think at the moment that good quarterbacks in the NFL these days start good, and if they don't, it's a worry. But Goff is the example of the other side. It doesn't always go that way, and you can't have a really rough start and still come good at the other end. Adam Thielen had a great game. The guy that's being held up as – like he's Carolina's version of Jacoby Myers. It's like he's emblematic of the problem. The receivers that can't get open or make any plays, and this is why Bryce Young can't survive at this level. Thielen had a really good game yesterday.
He's kind of been rejuvenated in the slot. I mean, he's not as dynamic as he was before, but when you morph, to me, it's more like late career Reggie Wayne, where like Reggie Wayne wasn't going to beat anybody on the outside anymore, but you stick him in the slot and he's going to be open against zone coverage and everything. Like Thielen's doing that.
He still knows where to go and how to beat. Like he's a great. It's all Reggie Wayne is a good one. Or remember when Miles Austin was amazing and it was like 100% just what was there, what was schemed open. He understood how to get to the right place within the scheme, but he's not going to win in man coverage anymore.
That's why going into this week, it was the rumors were Carolina's looking to trade for a receiver. Now they already don't. They're already out of a lot of draft capital because of the trade up for Bryce Young.
Right.
But absolutely, right. You said DeAndre Hopkins to Carolina to help Bryce Young. Imagine if they did have Hopkins on the outside, and now you've got this dude who's going to beat man coverage, or you just throw it up to him, and you have Thielen. It would make things look a lot smoother, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, my point was you bring in Hopkins as a bridge. You don't bring him in because when this team is good in 2 years' time, he's now at the end of his time, and it doesn't sync up. Like, you look what the Colts have done with Jonathan Taylor. As much as you agree or disagree with that contract, they've basically tied it in sync with Richardson's cheap money, right? So that when Richardson's cheap, Jonathan Taylor is getting money, and when Richardson stops being cheap, Jonathan Taylor's contract runs out, right? That would have been the Nuke Hopkins move. When Bryce Young is young and cheap and not costing you a ton of money, Hopkins can be your bridge guy so that he's actually got somebody to throw to. And then at the point where Bryce Young is now good and everything's getting better, you don't need Hopkins anymore. You can go get a new receiver. But they didn't do that.